Hello, Mr. Prasad, for this interesting workshop. As a token of appreciation from our side, we have a small certificate for him. And we will regather here. That will be a workshop from an idea to a successful product, which will be taken by Atul Manohar, who is from Data Visualization Informatica. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Just a second, I'll give my card. Just give me a minute. Sorry, you can take the photographs up there as well. There, as a group, at least, not a present.
It's tricky, a little sleepy, and not bad. Yeah. Okay, so thanks for joining me. Don't worry, I'll be killing you by all these big slides for about next 2 hours. Don't worry, just joking. The whole intent of this session is extremely interactive and hands-on. So I'm trying to build up a module which would be used by for any group, a kind of a group which has designers, developers, business stakeholders to understand the whole design process and getting hands-on to the real design. The whole design in a typical product company would take 1 year, 3 months, 1 month, 10 days. Anyway, before we actually jump into this, I really wanted to know what kind of audience we have. So how many of you are working for a product company, IT product company? Oh, that's wonderful. I have heard of McAfee. Any other names? Any other names? You're working for IBM. Sign? Zyme, okay. Any other names? Sorry? Shudder, okay. So rest of the people are working for any IT service company? Okay, so Infosys and stuff like that. So how many of you have a bit of experience in designing a product for an enterprise? Fabulous, quite a few. That gives a fair idea. Okay, so let me introduce myself. My name is Atul Manohar, and I take care of a small group of designers in a company called Informatica. It's about 10 UX designers, and the model we work in is individual designer takes care of a product kind of throughout the life, which is like 1 year, 2 years, or whatever it is. The advantage being the designer knows the product very well. Very highly technical products need a bit of time for the designers to immerse themselves into, understand the whole crux, and then start designing, right? Though this is a kind of a fixed looking structure, we need not fit onto this structure. The whole structure and index is built only to give us a bit of flexibility in terms of trying to explore some concepts. So that's the whole intention. So I love conceptualizing products. In my earlier days, I have designed a lot of physical products as well. I have designed automobile products, cosmetics, white goods. I have designed a few buildings, spaces. And now that I have designed, quite a few hundreds of portals, maybe back in Satyam time, I've got a friend from Satyam here as well. And now that I'm into designing enterprise products. So this one theme common, I could very clearly see when you're designing a huge building or you're designing a small product, like maybe this collar mic or a USB dongle, or an enterprise application, which is more like a socially used technological system, right? In the other room, somebody was really talking about that. So if you're designing a huge town, if you're designing a huge system, if you're designing a small product, there is a common theme of design, right? And all the designers definitely try and create something from the scratch or develop something from basic ideas. The whole process of design actually definitely is very long. 60-70% of you are anyway experienced UX designers in enterprise companies. I'm sure they'll probably say that, okay, our development cycle is about 1 year, release cycles. Does it make sense? Cloud guys will say, no, 2 months, 1 month, whatever it is. So effectively, whatever the cycle may be, whatever the amount of time available for the designers and developers, typically, I'm making a very bold statement, the whole design process principally remains kind of the same. Make sense? So I've tried to kind of come up with a kind of a generic process of design And one aspect of that design is something we are trying to explore in the workshop today. So the part we'll be exploring today will be how to convert an idea, abstract idea, into some bit of cognizable product. Make sense? We are not going to develop, we are not going to make detailed wireframes. We are just making some ideas and coming up with some kind of concrete nature of that idea. So that's as much we could do in 2 hours, right? So let's primarily try and see what is a product. A good idea, method, information, object, or a service created as a result of the process and serves a specific need or satisfies a want. The difference between the want and a need, I don't need to tell all the UX designers, right? So effectively, a product solves some amount of problems, right? It makes life easier for the users, definitely. And one more hidden message in all these is there has to be a business proposition. So if somebody benefits out of that product, then that product will be worth investing in. So the word design and the word business cannot be separated from each other. I cannot say that, okay, I am designing a fabulous product. I don't know whether it will be manufactured. I don't know whether it will be bought. So the word design has to be very closely knit with the word business. So all the designers need to know a lot more of the business you are into. So for example, our company is into data integration. And for all the designers working for my company, they should know what is data integration. So why people buy Informatica that kind of money into our products. And then I'll be able to say that, okay, for business sake, this is the primary business problem my product is serving. And now how could I make it better? How can I offer something more and so on, right? So in order to try and understand what is a product, long time back, the products used to be very physical products, right? I have tried to make a kind of a historical timeline of the whole concept of the products for that matter. Hold on, let me maximize it. So is it possible to switch off these lights, this side? So in the historical age, I'm sure the people, all these humans came up with some sticks and some stones and made products out of the available resources. And that product used to be a weapon or something I could till my ground for farming and so on. So over the time, the whole context of the product has been changing. So in the era of the industrialization, this is not a history of mankind, but a very, very brief snapshot of history of technology for that matter, right? So in the prehistoric era, people used to make things and use for some purpose. Then in the industrialization era, probably all these gadgets were manufactured in numbers, maybe a teacup, maybe something else and so on. And in that era, lots of technology was invented, right? So a gramophone or a car, a huge object of some metal moving without any animal by itself was a very delightful thing to see, right? So in that era, technology and invention ruled the whole technology world. Whereas the moment we start shifting on the right-hand side, one more big benchmark I clearly see as internet. How old is internet? Less than 30 years, right? A little over 30 years, whatever. But these 30 years has changed the whole history of last, I don't know how many thousands of years. And internet, the whole concept of all the content being available free of cost itself changed the way we thought about the products, right? The moment internet came into the picture, we started looking at products as very differently. Now that I wear a couple of activity bands, so you know what I'm wearing? Yeah, something like a Jawbone. This is a Fitbit and it's an activity tracker. So if I design a product and say this is my product, it doesn't really work. So it has to have a complete ecosystem of an app, a portal, and so on. There has to be Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, so it has to talk to all the other devices and stuff like that. So the more on the right-hand side you go, the more complex, the more systems all the products will become. Agree? Context of what is a product. And interestingly, I have designed in between. So that's precisely where we are going. On the right-hand side, all the products cannot be seen as single products. That's the whole context. The last bubble in my earlier diagram was kind of now. So as of now, the technology has taken a different mode from the era of invention of, I'll say, internet. So people are talking about few technology trends. Have you heard of all these technology trends? From desktop to mobile. So the number of people accessing the internet from the desktop and number of people accessing the internet from the mobile. So that number has drastically changed on the right-hand side. And people accessing the internet from the mobile are much more than the left-hand side now, right? You know all this data, there's nothing new. So that brings a very interesting context of the UI, of the communication between the product and the user. Earlier, if you remember, in the Google era, I had to search for things. So I had to go and say, okay, give me all the hotels in Bangalore. Tell me, and so on, right? So I had to ask questions, and the system will give you smart answers. So that was the portal era. Most of the portals were very smart in, number one, getting identified by Google. Number two, presenting the information appropriately, and then richer portion of the web. Whereas now, the whole dynamics has changed from desktop to mobile. And that brings in a very interesting change of the way the content is delivered. So the content is not searched for anymore. So I don't go and search for my content. So last week I was in Netherlands for about a week. On my Google Now, I could just see that, hey, Google Now knows that I love photography. Google Now knows that I am in Netherlands. And it suggests me the 3 places you should visit. So are you getting my point? I did not search. Of the way the information is accessed has been changing drastically. And last few years, we have seen from searching to relevant information being physically delivered to you is the trend now. The third one, on-premise to cloud. How many of you, most of the product companies, how many of you have your revenue in cloud more than 50%? More than 50%? So most of the product companies are trying to go there, of course. Even our website talks about mobile presence in a very big way. But obviously, like all the other companies, the revenue from the cloud is fractional, actually. 5%, 3%, 10%, and so on. I'm not talking about the cloud giants, obviously, like the Salesforce. So most of the traditional IT product companies are trying to shift their attention from the on-premise to cloud. You have heard of that? Or from on-premise to a kind of a hybrid IT model. So effectively, that's a very, very important change in the technology. So once you know the relevance of all these technology trends, then you will be able to perceive the products better. Then you will be able to come up with the right products, right ideas. Making sense? Let's move to the next one, Internet of Things. So Internet of Things is all around us, right? So for example, all the connected devices that we wear, all the crazy case studies of all the self-driving cars. Imagine self-driving car as a system has to have a lot of mature systems in place. First and foremost, the GPS. In Netherlands, I could see on almost every road, every 200 meters, there is every small little road in the small town. And that road has nothing but the information. If at all I'm stuck, I got some problem with my car, I can just call up and say that, hey, I am on whatever E19 and this particular place, some kind of a crazy code. So that means every 200 meters in the whole country is mapped very well. So I can clearly say, by the way, I am at this particular junction, whatever code written, I could just call somebody. So that is also going to add to the intelligence of the car, right? So I don't know whether it will work in India, but all this system definitely will contribute. So 2 cars will try and communicate with each other. So have you heard of Internet of cars, Internet of your devices, Internet within your house, smart refrigerators and stuff like that. Right? So that's the new trend. So most of the times, I distinctly remember people are saying, okay, this is the era of the product companies. But now actually this is the era of the physical product companies which are smarter. So people like Honeywells of the world, all these guys will probably be much more stronger, smarter, and better in terms of revenues than most of the companies that all of us are working for, maybe in the next 5 years, 10 years, I don't know. So interestingly, the technology trends, look at the technology trends, those are changing in last 5 to 10 years, less than that actually. From the internet, which was like less than 30 years of old, and now things have drastically changed. So the second last one is very interesting. From transactions to interactions. So typically, most of the IT systems have a lot of transactions, right? Transactional data, SAPs of the world. So they try to make all the online processes in a single system, or maybe weird systems, those are connected to each other. So every transaction, like a purchase or a sale or inquiry from a customer, is somehow recorded in the system. And ERP systems of the world try to make best use of that whole data. which I own, I as in the enterprise. Imagine I am one of the enterprises like Auto Giants, and I'll have huge ERP installation in my system, and I can make a lot of business intelligent decisions based on my transactions. One example, let me give you one. So maybe the stocks or maybe the amount of raw material in a particular unit, the way that is consumed. So I could kind of make some kind of statistical analysis and say that, by the way, you are storing more raw material in this particular location than they require, and then we could reduce that to 10%, saving in money and stuff like that. So all these business intelligent decisions could be actually taken by the transactions, but not anymore. A friend of mine bought a new car from a very reputed Indian car manufacturer, and the first time he drove that car from the showroom to home, he was not so happy. And the first tweet was, XYZ brand sucks, on the Facebook. Very interesting. And interestingly, 1 hour from that tweet, 1 hour from that post, somebody from that company, marketing person, calls up personally our friend and says, please don't do that, sir. You are killing our brand. I will fix anything you want. So they sent a service van, they took his car and gave him benefits and stuff like that. So interestingly, the business decisions are no more only driven by the transactions. What are interactions? Interactions are nothing but the tweets you do, the updates on the Facebook you do, and stuff like that. So how could I take a business decision based on interaction? Imagine a CEO of a company stranded on Delhi airport for about 1 hour because of the flight delay, and the airlines company actually has a lot of information about their customers, right? They could at least find, I don't know whether they use. So at that time, the CEO is a very known personality. He has anyway given all of his credentials in order to book the tickets. So the airlines company actually knows that I am flying this very important person and he's getting late. So how about a person from the airlines company walking near him saying that, sir, I know that you're traveling for a conference. You're giving a keynote over there. I know that there are a couple of more guys traveling for exactly the same conference here. They're also stranded on the same airport. Let me introduce you with them. Are you getting the difference? So the second last point is extremely important. That's especially what we'll be probably delving into the exercise. So interestingly, business are trying to exploit all the information which is available from the interactions, not only from the transactions. And the moment you mash that data, imagine the transactions information will give you, let's take the case of the CEO traveling. So information from the systems will be very clear that this person is traveling, he's going from point A to point B, he has a connection from point B to point C, and so on. The interactions information, if at all they mash up appropriately, could be like his Facebook, his LinkedIn profile, and wow, we are not living in an isolation anymore. Each one of you, I can track you, each one of you on the internet very easily. I know what you did in last summer, right? Absolutely. So that's the kind of world we are living into. So interestingly, are the businesses making that data useful? Have you heard of any company doing that? Quite a few are, by the way. That's the big data. So that's precisely the last trend I'm talking about. Data is the new oil. Have you heard of this? So our design exercise is also kind of revolving around that. Let's go into that a little later. So this is the way the whole internet had changed over the last 30 years. Earlier it was only very simple interactive way people could get information. I don't need to read a book from page 1 to page 10, right? Or page 100. I can just directly go to that chapter and see that, okay, I'm interested in this information only. So interactivity was the only thing earlier in the web. Now that the web has kind of matured to a very great extent. So people could contribute, there is crowdsourcing and stuff like that. So I know all this is not new for you. Just keep all these points in mind, especially something over here and especially something over here. Make sense? That is going to help us in our exercise together. So what are the objectives of design? The objectives of design, the first part definitely is creating some products to solve daily life problems. I want to see smile on the face of the user, blah, blah, blah. We have been saying that, right? But that is that is an incomplete sentence when we say purpose of design. The purpose of design is also the second part. The second part is help achieve business objectives for organizations, companies to improve their business. I want to increase my profitability. I want to reduce my cost. I want to go into more markets. I want to probably sell my products more and so on. So these are the kind of problems all of us end up solving than the kind of social problems of how to eradicate poverty from India. Most of the designers end up solving the problems of that kind, right? And of course, while doing that, I don't mind putting a smile on the face. So because I'm putting a smile on the face of the user, then my business improves. So that whole equation of designing for the mankind to designing for the mankind in order to make more money for my business is the right statement, is the right and correct statement actually. It has a reference to what we are going to do anyway. So a generic design process would typically look like this. Ideally try and state a problem, generate some ideas, select maybe ideas will have few solutions, pick up a solution, build the item, evaluate, present it to the users, maybe fail and stuff like that. A waterfall model did a very interesting thing. I don't need to go into all these things, right? In a waterfall model, the requirements have to be frozen, then I go to design and so on. So by the time the product is delivered, probably the whole requirements have changed. So that is the basic problem. That's why people shifted to Agile, wherein I don't mind changing the requirements. I don't mind every 3 weeks customer saying, no, not that way. How about this way? Not really this. How about this role doing that functionality? Now that our organization have changed, we have another CEO over there who does this and so on. So taking care of all these changing throughout the development process was very easy in the Agile process. But this is one thing I really love. A beautiful quote from a favorite architect, Frank Lloyd Wright. It's very easy to use an eraser rather than a sledgehammer. So how many of you have really used a sledgehammer or seen a sledgehammer being used in your products? Only 2? Wow, I'm surprised. Almost all the companies would have used more sledgehammer than the eraser, is what I distinctly remember. Absolutely. Not in public at least. Anyway, I mean, we don't need to go into all this. So effectively, let's physically jump into the design problem. So before really we physically jump into the design problem, I really want all of you to read through these technology trends. And any thoughts on this? Is this making sense?